It's impossible.
And give me I know you kind of went over this earlier, but give me a couple more from the Bible that point to this, because me personally, I find it interesting. You know, I'm one who's always said I look at the Bible as more of a history book, and really people's accounts of things that happened, and you know, others will take it as you know, literal religious text, and I don't, and I'm not criticizing anyone who does, but I take it as records being kept. Right? I mean, isn't that what
Right,
it is?
exactly. These are eyewitness accounts. They're not random. And all of these data points help you figure out the last book of the Bible, which is Revelation. Without the data points, you cannot have a clear viewpoint of the last book. That's how detailed this stuff is. Remember, we talked about Yeshua's sacrifice. There was 3 hours of darkness. Now, let's talk about the Exodus, where it was 3 days of darkness. Why is there such an extreme there? Well, this explains how Ceres got destroyed. When it was coming in, it plowed into Ceres, destroying Ceres. That's why we have an asteroid belt now. That's a destroyed planet. And its forward motion was slowed down to 1/20th of its normal speed as it rounded the sun. And it gave 3 days of darkness. The eclipse was for 3 days, not 3 hours. And because it lost its speed, okay, it only went out 52 years before it came back in. It was drawn back by the magnetic pull of the sun. And that was Joshua's long day. Then it went around the sun. It picked up a little bit more speed. It went out 131 years. That was Ruth, the drought of Ruth, and Job's trouble. Then it went around the sun one more time, and it sped up again. It went out 336 years. That was King David and Saul. Saul had 3.5-year drought at the end of his reign, and David had 3.5-year drought at the beginning of his. It passed exactly in the middle between their argument, basically, you know, where Saul was trying to kill David. It was in the sky. That's where you get the Star of David from. And then it went around and picked it up a little bit more speed, and it came to 358 years. This was the time of Hezekiah when the shadow went backwards. 40 days earlier than that was when Jonah of Nineveh gave a warning to Nineveh. What's interesting about Jonah is he created no miracles. How could he went to a town of 20,000 or so and perform no miracles, but yet they all believed him? Only thing he had to do was point to the sky, and they could see it at 40. The model shows that 40 days it rounds the sun. You can see it. Now, what's interesting is these people didn't have internet and TV.
That's right.
They were in tune with nature. They saw birds dying. They saw fish killed. They saw the seasonal change. They saw severe drought. They knew something was wrong. The only thing Jonah had to come says, in 40 days your doom comes. And he points to the sky. Then 40 days later is where it crossed Earth's path, getting close to Earth, and Earth tilted 26 to 28 degrees, causing the shadow to go backwards on the steps of Hezekiah. Then 152 days later is when the Assyrians had 185,000 soldiers. And they died. There's accounts in the Jewish texts in other books that says they died by fiery hail. That was 152. That was 5 months later. Now, what's interesting about Hezekiah, I think in over 78 countries or so, it's documented that the calendar changed from 360 to 365 and a quarter. That's documented outside the Bible. That something caused the Earth to have a greater orbit. It went outward just a little bit, and giving us more time to go around the sun. The year was expanded to 365 and a quarter.
So then Mars would have actually been kind of more closer to the Goldilocks zone, and the last time this thing, maybe not the last time, then it would have had to have been several times ago, right? That it knocked Mars out?
In one of these, I don't know when it happened, but you can see, if you get the elevation view that puts it in color, the elevation of Mars, the different terrain, you can see a circular bruise on one of the lower half. I think 94% of all the craters of Mars are on half of its hemisphere. All of the impacts on half of its, and that's the southern half. And the reason why you have that is because the southern half crossed the debris trail of Planet 7X, the lower half of it. That's why all of the meteor impacts only hit the lower half of it. And then at one time, it bumped it, causing a circular misindentation. Hitting it, pushing it up about another 1.5 degrees out of the plane of Earth. It was almost equal to the planetary plane of Earth. Now it's not. Now it's no longer being hit by the debris fields.
You know what my biggest concern of any of this would be are all the nuclear power plants around the globe. I think that even if you packed a good lunch and you were able to survive the coming and going of Planet X, I would really like to know how anybody plans on surviving the meltdown of all these facilities.
Some of these facilities need 18 months to cool the core down enough where you don't need any more water to be pumped on there. They're already too late on some of these units to turn them off. Now, if Earth tilts 26 to 28 degrees, according to the accounts, if it's North and South America that's getting hit, then that meant the tilt is somewhere around the eastern seaboard of America, that the tilt would be. Well, that meant a lot of these reactors in Canada and northern U.S. may hit extreme freezing temperatures at about 150 to 300 mile an hour winds. Well, that's why the mammoths were instantly frozen. Entire herds where mammoths were frozen with vegetation still in the mouth. They didn't have time to swallow. They were frozen in just a few seconds or minutes. Entire herds. Because they were caught in a tilt. Well, these
true.
Power plants are caught in a tilt, and the cooling system freezes. Well, there goes your core. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then at some point that stuff's going to thaw out. It might be millions of years later. I don't know, but so wouldn't it still be a problem? I mean, if it's held in the ice at some point, maybe, I don't know.
No, the core would be too hot. They wouldn't have any. It would only stop the cooling system, the pumps. The pumps would fail. Therefore, it would end up blowing, just like in Fukushima.
I see. Yeah. So again, there goes my whole point is how do you survive that? I mean, I mean, you get the elites. They build these underground facilities, and you know, I don't think they must plan on staying down there forever. I guess because it would be a very, very long time before I think you'd be able to breathe the air and feed yourself from the soil, and then of course I don't know, maybe something like Planet X would scorch us. I don't know.
Because they're going to go with the astronomy model that doesn't allow for a rotational delay of 12 hours because they're not using the electromagnetic universe model. They will predict that the meteor shower will hit the Middle East, Europe, China, that area. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually the Antichrist false miracle. Because of the terrorism listed in Seal 4, no one will give a visa to the Muslims to leave their country. So they're locked into their own country with a pending meteor shower hitting them, according to the scientists. So to be scared to death, and here comes this Mahdi that says not to worry, I will change times and laws. I will change the time by 12 hours and cause fire to fall on our enemy, which is North and South America. The scientists will predict that this side is the safe side. And that's why they go underground over here. And it ends up, the Bible says, that's their tomb. They will wish death for 5 months before death comes, which is 5 months later, 152 days later. The second meteor shower takes them out. And this is the miracle of the false Antichrist. And it's...
Hold on a second there. We have, somehow you got paused. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. Somehow I went to take a call and it paused you for some reason. I apologize for that.
Well, that's okay. I was pausing anyway, so that's good.
All right. Well, I've got a couple questions from our chat. One is, and I should tell callers, this is probably why it happened. If you're going to call in on Skype or what have you, make sure that you have yourself, green available, because I think that if you have yourself offline or do not disturb and you try to call in, we're unable to, or have yourself able to be added to group calls. Because if you've got that feature blocked, it's not going to work. All right. So Rocky asks, Michael, could you ask your guest how big is Planet X compared to the size of Earth?
A rough estimate is, from what I can get from 3 different ways of calculating this in the data, I roughly estimate between 6.5 and 7.5 diameters of Earth. That's why I call it Planet 7X. It helps separate the data from the false calls, like the 3600. Even Dr. Harrington, which is mostly quoted by a certain person out there,
Yeah.
that he quotes that Dr. Harrington stated it was 3600. No, he didn't. If you read his white paper report, he states it as 1,019 years. And he estimated to have about 4 masses of Earth. And but he didn't have the Chinese records. The Chinese, Japanese, and the Korean record is the ace in the hole. Without that data, I would still be a skeptic today. That caused the eyewitness accounts. Remember what science is. If you can take a eyewitness account or paranormal phenomena, bring it to the laboratory, show that it's repeatable, that's science. It doesn't matter if it comes from clay tablets, papyrus, or anywhere. If it's repeatable, it follows Kepler's law of the planet and the orbital mechanics, that's science. These eyewitness accounts did not have this knowledge, and their models match this. And it's the same object as the Chinese saw in 1054.
Mm-hmm. Interesting stuff. Neo says, if there was a spacecraft of significant size in orbit during the Passover, is it possible for that to cause an eclipse?
Yes, but you'd have to have a spherical shape object, or something that size. It can't be a flat disc shape. You'd have to, and also it would not cause the plasma tail that would cause the Earth to slow down by 12 hours, as stated in Joshua's long day, as well as what's stated in Revelation. Remember, it says the 4 angels got to the 4 corners, and that meant cardinal points like north, south, east, and west, and the winds are stopped. Only way you can stop the winds is if the Earth's rotation stops, because that's the Earth's rotation is what causes the winds. It's speaking about Earth's rotation stopping again. So we're going to go through the plasma tail. It's going to come close again.
It is
and
going to come.
And a tilt will be involved 26 to 28 degrees.
Do you think that every now and then different planets in the solar system get knocked in that Goldilocks zone and others get knocked out? I mean, is it possible that 2 could be in it at once? So I guess Earth and Mars and maybe even Venus might have all shared that Goldilocks zone at one time then, right?
Not necessarily. I think they misidentified this object with Mars and sometime with Jupiter. Because remember, Mars is called the planet of war. Remember how this planet in the Bible is called the destroyer. Okay? Basically means the same thing. It was misidentified because they came so close together. Remember, it bumped into Mars. It could be misidentified. Remember, the people who are interpreting this text of ancient time, modern archaeologists or have no clue of this planet to be able to include it into the text. So if you're missing a piece, then you can't complete the proper story. You have to have the pieces.
Mm-hmm. And this would be, then you would say that this would be, I should ask, what they found might have been perturbing Neptune and some of these outer planets. I know that they went beyond Pluto, and they say that they had found like a dwarf star and some planets, and I'm wondering, is that the system? Or is it closer than that now?
No, it has to be closer than that. Remember, it takes 16 years just from the orbit of Neptune to reach us. And when you're talking about stars, the closest star to us is 4.5 light years away. We're looking at millions of years traveling at its normal speed to better reach us. This object has to be within our solar system and quite close for it to reach for the Pioneer and the Voyager probes to have made instrument contact. I would say it's within 1 to 2 years. And if you look at the government spending, like they don't have to pay it back, I would say it's close also. I mean, they just wrote a check in thin air now. They don't have any treasury bills to back it up. I'd say that's a pretty good flag that it should be close. Because a economy can't stand if you're writing checks out of thin air.
Yeah, it's true. They're just spending it like they've got it, aren't they? Like there's what does it matter anyway? Like, even Hillary Clinton said, so what does it matter now? She probably feels that way about the whole kit and caboodle then.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, some of these people know it. It's on need to know basis, but um,
Yeah. So
just follow the ink. That's all you got to do.
So then, Gil, here's what I guess we'll go through a few things here. Here's what we can expect now, I guess, as the months move ahead here, as we hit closer to what would you say, November? If not this November, you're saying possibly next year sometime?
You're looking at an exit point somewhere in March, and that's what the Bible in Revelation seal 6 is talking about, a March event, March or April.
March
so
of this year.
Each year coming, we pay attention 40 to 60 days ahead of time, to the skies. Look for a brand new star the size, the way Jupiter will look at the nighttime sky, but as bright as Venus. Be attentive. That's what Yeshua said for us to do. Look for a sign in the sky. Be attentive. We know what to look for now. I just can't tell you 100% when, but this year is not over with because the economy is on stilts. It seems like it's ready to fall. And so if that happens, we could see a short war that might go nuclear for a little while, tactical nukes or something. That would fulfill seal 3 and 4. Then they would have a peace agreement. So it could happen within fairly quick period of time. So I don't know the time frame. I just know that we need to pay attention to what's happening around us.
But I mean, as it gets closer, though, we can expect pickups in earthquakes and even the size of earthquakes, right? What else? Give us some telltale signs. More animal die-offs, or what are some of the things we can expect to get? I mean, we've seen the weather get kind of crazy already, and I'm sure to a lot of people that's becoming the norm now. So, at what point do people say, "Oh my God, something's got to be"?
See, when all our planets are warming up, that meant when you're adding more heat, the crust has to expand. If it expands, you have earthquakes and volcanoes occurring. When that also happens, you have methane releases under the sea and over the land where the rock is shattered. If birds and fish fly through this methane, they're very sensitive to methane. Humans are not. It's odorless. You can't smell it. And they just drop out of the sky, and the fish die, and they show up on the beaches. We're only seeing maybe like 1/10 to 1/20th of the actual animals that are dead. Those are the ones that coming to shore on populated areas. We're not documenting the animals that's coming up on unpopulated areas or never make it to the shore. So the deaths of the animals are greater than what we know, and it's already extreme. Your earthquakes will get worse. I wouldn't be living by fault. The Madras fault or the San Andreas or any major fault. I would say anywhere on earth, if there's a fault by it, don't live by it and don't live by the coastline. The Bible even tells you that. During the time period of this thing, don't live by the coastline. You're looking at tsunamis, you're looking at coastal flooding, all kinds of things happening on the coastline.
Mm-hmm.
The government is actually telling most of their elite people, like your submariners, the SEALs and so, to retire or move their family to the Ozarks. They're telling them to move away from the shores. They're not telling them. Some of them they don't tell why. Just say you should be. And if you go to the Ozark, it's a high population of Navy, and the elite groups are there. There's a reason for that.
Yeah. Well, Gil, we've got to take one more break, and then we'll come back, and I'll give you the floor to get out whatever you like. And if anybody wants to call in, we'll take your calls at 803 392-4566. You can also call in using Skype. Our ID is LNM Radio. We had a ton of calls coming in the early going, and I don't know if people gave up or what, but now's your chance. This is actually your last chance when we come back from this break. Get over to the website, latenightinthemidlands.com. Help us out. Become a late nighter. Donate. All these things help us continue to do what we do. I've gotten a lot of great feedback for the L&M Radio Network by listeners, and I thank you all for all your kind words, and we're going to continue to do the best that we can, keeping it real here because others don't, quite frankly. So Gil Bruzard is my guest. I like tonight's guest, though. He puts forth, he's sticking right to the facts and to his science. We'll get to your questions and your calls as well here in just a moment. We had a couple calls, but one had dropped off, and the other one is not set for group calls, so I can't take your call. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get some questions in the chat, Gil, because we've got a few of them piling up here.
Sure.
All right, so we've got Jack says, ask guest, can we blow up X if we see it before it hits or affects us?
No, it's entirely too large. It's 6.5 to 7.5 times the diameter of Earth.
So that's a flat out no.
No.
All right. We've got another one here from Jack. He says, can your guest explain why nothing happened 360 years ago and 720 years ago, approximately?
That's not exactly true. We have paintings and wood carvings of them actually pointing to an object in the sky that's slightly larger than the sun, and it shows lightning bolts, kind of, or maybe they meant brilliant light or whatever. But they're pointing to it, and we have another painting, which some people claim is Halley's Comet, but there's a problem with it. It shows two objects with a tail in the sky. One of them might be Halley's Comet, but what about the other one? And in the painting, it shows meteors coming down, falling on the town. They show the ground with faults in it, like it opened up and uplifted, and part of the buildings are knocked down. The trees are snapped in half. People are holding their stomach like they're hungry, like there's a drought or food shortage. That does not describe Halley's Comet. It's describing our planetary object that's documented the same way throughout the biblical records.
Mm-hmm. All right. Fair enough. Omar says, could the statements made by the Queen and the Pope about 2015 possibly being our last Christmas be right after all?
Strong possibility.
Yeah, they did come out. I know the Pope came out. I heard the Queen too, but I didn't actually see that one. But the Pope had come out and said that this could very well, he said, be our last Christmas. And I'm thinking, what does he know that we don't?
Well, the Queen said the same thing. The Queen of England.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
it's almost as if they know something that we don't, right?
Yeah, it's what's the what are they called? The sixth. It slips my mind, but he's supposed to have these secret things about the future there. Oh, it totally slipped my mind. I had it on the tip of my tongue, but anyways, the Secrets of Fathom or something like. Yeah, that's it.
Sure.
I think. Yeah.
But why would a religious institution spend $30 million on their own telescope in Arizona?
Yeah.
And even their head astronomer, which was a Jesuit at the time, I forgot what his name was. He stated that they spotted something that would be a great concern 10 or 15 years into the future. He didn't give a date because he didn't know, because it was too far out, but they saw it. They saw it at the time. It was outside our solar system because they had built the strongest infrared item, and they knew where to look now because the Pioneer and Voyager probe helped them coordinate the exact point on where to focus it. So, and you have the head astronomer saying it. What more proof do you need?
Yeah.
Data? Well, I'm giving you the data. And also, from that last question, the two time periods that she's talking about is the Dark Ages. During the time of the Dark Ages, They had greater concerns than documenting something in the sky, And also, I can quote the scientists in the scientific papers that was stating that data in Europe is mysteriously missing, as if it was censored. Mm-hmm. That's now they were looking for a supernova. They weren't looking for a planet, but they were saying when they were looking for the data, it's mysteriously censored. Is their quote. Now I know that this object right now, the supernova, was 3 to 4 months earlier, and that this object was not, because it's viewed in multiple constellations. Supernova is stationary, just like a star in the sky. Stationary. It doesn't move.
Yeah. So, and there's a Mark who continues to try to call in. And Mark, I'm not ignoring your call, but it's telling me that if I take your call, it's going to put our guest on hold. That tells me that you've got it blocked so nobody could add you to a group call. You've got to change that, and then I could take your call. So I'm not purposely not taking your call, just so you know. All right, so we've got more questions here. Stop Making Sense asks, question for Gil. He says Planet X is why the year is 365 days, but our calendar was changed because of Pope Gregory to make Easter fall at the same time of the year, thus the Gregorian calendar.
The Gregorian calendar wasn't even in existence during Yeshua's time. We're talking about 700 BC, and it was on probably 2 or 3 dozen countries that changed their calendar within a 5-year period. This is way before the Catholics were even, existed. Okay, and it's documented throughout history that the calendar changed from 360 to 365 and a quarter right there. Something took place, and it's mirroring Hezekiah's shadow going backwards on steps, as the Hebrew text says.
Okay. Neo says, does Gil have any input regarding the ET presence and intervention?
No data whatsoever.
Okay. And he also asked, someone posted a math equation using the number 666, which came to 2016. Is there any truth to this in biblical metaphors?
I have no data to prove that or to see this, so I can't make a comment.
Okay, and we've got Dina, and she says, Gil, since I don't have a telescope, in what direction do I look for Planet 7X, and will the direction stay approx the same? She says, how will I know what is a new star since I am new to looking at constellations? We may not have our phones and computers to try and get enough info. Thank you, Dina.
So, you can go to Amazon. You can go to any astronomer store or even Amazon.com and get what's called a planisphere. It's a cardboard-shaped disc that you rotate to the hour and the date, and you point it in the direction you're looking at, and it shows you exactly the constellation in front of you. And the only other stars that are not pointed out there would be planets. The brightest, the larger ones and the brighter ones are, the brightest one is Venus, and the largest thing in the sky is Jupiter. Well, you're going to see a third object that matches both of those. It's going to be as large as Jupiter, but as bright as Venus. Because it's moving, I can't help you. I can't give you an exact. I do have some things on my Facebook page for upcoming dates. One was tonight, which it was not cited, where I gave where I would be looking at. We had clouds here where I'm at, but there's actively people looking, so they report in and said there was nothing there. So we're waiting for February, which would be a rough account of a 40-day approach, which is given in Jonah, the misaccounts of Jonah. For a wicked and adulterous generation, the sign of Jonah. Well, I think there's only 2 pages of Jonah. We already know that the 3 days in the grave was already taken, that's how much days he was in the grave. I think when he returns this next time, it's going to be associated with the 40 days now. None of these stories in the Bible are random. They're literal data points. It's a It was so well crafted, it can only be crafted by the Almighty himself on the way this thing is plotted in these stories and how it lines up with the last book. Remember, the last book was written 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Israel wasn't even created. I mean, Israel had to come back, and you have to know the movements of the stars, which the constellation shifts over every 2,100 years. It's just impossible.
Could it by chance be like a random type thing that happens? Like there are accounts of what happened, maybe whatever came by at that point. Because I ask because now they're finding, so many dwarf stars out throughout the universe, throughout the different galaxies, and I'm in rogue planets as well. And I'm thinking, can't these things also just kind of happen?
Well, you think it's an accident that they were able to predict 1/3 of the trees, the grass, and later dimension 1/3 of the rivers would be destroyed when America was not even discovered yet, and that's the only half of the globe that's 1/3? How did they do that?
Well, I don't know. That's why I have you here.
I have a video. It's called The New Jerusalem Fact or Fiction. And I put modern day formulas of tensile strength and pressure vessel calculations for a dome-like structure to come out of the second heaven, which is space, into the first heaven, which is our atmosphere. For a dome to hold 14.7 pounds pressure, which is our atmosphere pressure, how thick would the wall have to be? Well, if you use steel, the steel would have to be something like 1,400 feet thick. I'm kind of pulling this off the top of my head. I don't have it in front of me.
Sure.
And and titanium, if you built the wall out of titanium, remember I said the wall was 210 foot thick.
Whew.
And if you built the wall out of titanium, it'd be like 700 feet thick. Well, not until we use diamond. And there's a hard and a soft diamond. When we take the mid of that and do the calculations, it gives us 210 foot thick. The next sentence it says it's clear as glass. Titanium and steel is not clear. Now it says it has 12 gates that are shaped like a pearl, a sphere. A spherical gate is the only type of shaped gate that can hold pressure, like a ball valve. A flat gate can't. Now, for people who only build things with brick, stone, wood, and that's the limit of their building materials, how did they get this right? And it's 1,300 miles across, approximately.
That's a good question.
If you take a look at that video, I run through the math, and it can't do it. This was beyond their skill level to be able to give. You can ask any senior engineer and ask them, how thick would a wall have to be if you have an object 1,300 to 1,200 miles across, and it needed to hold, and it's a dome, and it had to hold 14.7 pounds pressure. How thick would the wall have to be if it's steel? And see what type of number he gives you. It needs to be about 1,400 feet thick. And ask him how thick it would have to be for titanium. It has to be 700 feet thick. Then ask him a diamond one, because diamond is only carbon. Okay, it's the third most, I think, the third most abundant substance in the universe. You can't, like I told you, I challenge it scientifically and mathematically. I can't find an error, and it didn't have the science yet. It's impossible for them to make that happen. Accident.
All right, Gil. Another question here. Ask Gil if Gil would fly to Europe from USA if you see this planet. I'm assuming that if you see the planet, you wouldn't want to be in no planes, right?
Well, no, the planes will be flying beforehand. Remember, we got 40 days of seeing it. For sure, the Bible tells us this. At least we'll have at least 40 days.
Okay.
According to the data in the Bible, remember, there's no scientific data to back this up, but the science does not disprove the Bible right there on the data that it's giving us. It's going along with the model. There will be a pivot point. If you're not at that pivot point of the tilt, then if you're 90 degrees from that pivot point of the tilt, you're looking at 300 to 150 mile an hour winds. Well, if you've ever been in a hurricane, 150 mile an hour winds, trees don't stay in the ground. If you've ever been in a F5 tornado at 300 mile an hour, grass doesn't stay in the ground. Well, if you're 90 degrees from that tilt, that pivot point of that tilt, you're looking at the highest wind, and that's not counting the waves, either the flooding and everything that moves. So, according to the calcs, the pivot point of the tilt would be around the Middle East, around Jerusalem. And the word mekrah in Hebrew means dry rehearsal. He's telling you to be at this rehearsal in Jerusalem for Passover. And that would be the safe zone. And that's one of the rehearsals he requires you to be in Jerusalem. And that happens to be where Elijah shows up for Passover. It says he shows up in Jerusalem.
Okay.
So if we follow his rehearsal pattern, we'll be at this point, the place that's the only safe place.
All right. And folks, I'm getting your messages, and I'm getting to them one by one. I'm getting them to them in the order they came. All right. So next we've got Andre, I think that is. This is coming from Ira. He's passing this one along to me. He says, do you think the government will take our kids away during school and take them underground?
No.
No. Why not?
These underground facilities are not large enough. It's only for the elite. These secret societies. I was invited to these underground facilities to join these one of the secret societies. And I just pumped them for information because I had a pretty good idea on what they were doing. And this person would nod, telling me yes or no to my question. Once I had enough information, I didn't... you see, like your passport has electronic chip. It also tells you if you're a member of these secret societies. So there's no ticket to be waived. When you're at the airport getting on a plane, the ones with that certain electronic chip that says go to the right, everyone else goes to the left. That plane goes to the Denver airport where they go on the ground. These underground facilities are not built for the average person. And I wouldn't want to be in one anyway.
No, I wouldn't either.
It was offered to me. I turned them down. I'm going to Jerusalem.
So you actually got an offer. So that's
2 of them.
Ooh, they tried to give
I got one on a private. This individual, he bought one of those ICBM silos, and he converted it into a shelter. And he called me up and he invited me because he liked my work. I had 2 questions for him. I said, are you 150 to 200 miles away from a nuclear facility? He says, yes. I said, well, can your air intake filter out radioactivity? He says, no. Okay. Second question. I said, are you within 500 miles of Yellowstone? He says, yeah. I said, when you have 20 to 60 inches of ash and it rains and it turns to cement, do you have explosives to blow the cement away from your hatches to where you can get out of it, to better exit out of your shelter? He said no. He was quiet. I said, I think I'll take my chances on the other side of the globe.
Well, you ruined his day. But you're right, though. Yeah, the ash, it would be like cement, wouldn't it? We've got another question here. This one, it says, for Gil, how many people will survive this event? Now, I don't think that you could possibly know that, but I could be wrong. So the question's to you anyways.
Well, I don't know. It says the people on this side, at least in America, Canada and America, or it says the 1/3. It's they will wish death for 5 months, and death will not come to the 5th month. I think, and that's a second meteor shower. Mm-hmm. Now we're not looking at a meteor. We're looking at a meteor storm. You need to look that up. That's millions of meteors falling at a time, not like snow, but large rocks, and everything is burning. And they'll wish death for 5 months. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be under that condition.
No, me either. I've said it before. If it's going to be like that, then I just as soon be right there wherever it first interacts with. We've got another question here from Neo. He says the Denver underground city was imploded August 23rd, 2011. Now, I didn't hear nothing about that, but maybe you did.
No, I seriously doubt that.
Yeah.
Whenever you build a hardened facility with probably 6 foot or 3 foot cement walls, it ain't going to implode. It's not going to. Not unless it's hit by a meteor. And I didn't hear of any.
No, I didn't either. All right. Jack asks, will Gil be writing a book or an article in a scientific journal or a YouTube explanation of his observations and conclusions related to also the Bible?
Yeah, I have over 30 something videos that I put up that explains different aspects of it. I do offer for people who have a hard time getting family members to be convinced on this object. If they go to planet7x.net, there's a DVD we offer it where they can play it in their living room. And many people have thanked me because it helped their family members be convinced that this object is real. Then they go back to the YouTube, and then they start looking at these biblical accounts, these biblical accounts that I got stated. But I won't be writing a book. We already have a book written. It's called the Bible. And I don't need to be... Only thing you need to do, I point you to the chapter and the verse, read the stories, and see how detailed they are and how it matches the science.
Okay. All right. Well said. We've got, this is from Matthew. It says, Gil, earlier you mentioned ancient cultures called this object Horus and Zeus. Hold on, I got to get to the rest of this here. Is Planet 7X who we called Yahshua?
No. Yahshua is the Messiah. This is a planet, which is called the Destroyer or the Fiery Dragon of Old, or Baal in the Bible, and a few other names in the Bible. But this is, remember, Abaddon and Polygon, whatever, in Revelation, that means destroyer. And this thing does a lot of destruction. But this is not Yeshua. No, nowhere near.
Okay. And let's see, we've got, I think, a couple more here. Well, maybe we don't. All right. So, yeah. All right. So what I'd like to do now, we're down to probably the last 15 minutes here. So what I'd like to do is give you the floor to get out anything you'd like. And folks, last chance, if you want to call in, make sure that when you call in, if you use Skype, your settings are right. Some of you have not been able to take your call because you've got yourself blocked from being added to groups, and I can't take your call. So 803-392-4566. And Gil, go right ahead. Anything that you'd like to get out, appearances, YouTube channels, anything at all, go right ahead. And I thank you so much for being here tonight.
Oh, well, I offer my services for free. Only thing I ask is for my expenses to be covered, and that's it. If any decent-sized group that wants a presentation, I'll be willing to travel until travel is not allowed or it won't be safe, one of the two. But I'm trying to pass the message and a clear understanding and the data. Then they can make up their own minds. Look, I was a skeptic, a hardened skeptic. It took data to convince me. This is a real object. There's no doubt about it. And it's no doubt that NASA found it. But I can't give you an exact date when it's coming. I can give you an approximate. It's near. That's about as far as and then there's a date given, and the biblical gives a date that greatly concerns me. That's Revelation 12:1. I see that as being March 25th, 26th of 2016. Is it going to be? I have no way of knowing because I can't tell the future. But time will tell. If we see the economy crash and escalated war in the Middle East that involves a peace agreement involving Israel, look out. The next event after that is a meteor shower shortly after that. And
that won't be good. Now, some have speculated, and I've gone down this road as a theory, okay? Just a theory, not an argument against anything you've said. But what about the possibility that the psychos who are behind the curtains right now, who are controlling things behind those curtains, what if those psychos read the Bible too? And what if they're doing everything they can to use technology to make us believe that we're in those times? How would we know the difference between their trickery and the real thing?
Because they don't recognize the science in it. It's right to the T. They're making things happen, like they're bringing the Babylon for it to be the next military empire and economic empire would be out of Babylon. They're getting that set up. They're targeting Jews and Christians. right now.
Yeah.
Jews and Christians won't go along with being tattooed with a number, whether it's a chip or not. Well, that is holding up the New World Order. And guess who they're going to peg as terrorists? We're already on the terrorist watch list. Christians are. And TSA, it's in the manual. Christians are listed as terrorists, and if you state that you're a Bible believer, it's qualified that you're a nut in the TSA manual.
Well, and the Pentagon, they've got this virus. The military-industrial complex has got this virus now that you've been using in the Middle East. I've talked about this a few times on this show, and this virus it targets the God particle of the brain. So if you have any belief in God or anything along those lines, this virus it's meant to wipe that out. So you don't think that way.
Well. They're 30 to 50 years ahead of us.
Oh, I believe it.
Type of stuff, they're able to pull holograms and make things look like they come out of the sky, like UFOs, and it may not even be real. The Bible tells us question everything, and this, there's going to be a lot of trickery in the economy as well as what we see, and I can tell you one thing. I have not found an error in the Bible except translational error, but not when you go back to the Hebrew, it's correct. It's
okay. Well,
it's quite reassuring when it's that level of correctness in there. So, like I said, I was offered the underground fair. I wouldn't go there, and they can offer it to me till they're blue in the face. I won't go.
I gotta be honest, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't go either. I don't care what because that'd be my worst fear. I'd rather take my chances up here. I don't want to be buried alive. That's horrible. Dina says, thank you, Gil, very much. Wade says he's got a question. He asked, where are the North and South Poles going to be?
They would dip 26 to 28 degrees, and then they'll start to come back. That's a total of about 6 hours for them to tilt, and another 6 for them to correct themselves. But they won't come back fully. There's always somewhere around anywhere from 3 degrees to 7 degrees off, because there's slipperage between the crust and the core. So it comes back close, but not exactly.
All right, Gil, we've got a call here. We've got 441 area code. First name, where are you calling from, please?
Hello, Michael. It's Mark. I was actually calling on Skype there. I was having problems there.
Oh, well, welcome aboard.
Hello, I'm calling from Scotland, actually. It is, at the moment, it's about 10 to 5 in the morning. What it was to ask Gil if I'd be safe in Scotland if this happened.
Depends on your elevation. You see, when the Earth's rotation starts to stop, there's about 12 kilometers of additional water around the equator. That will start to drift to the north and the south. Now, you won't have the entire 12 kilometers going to the north and south, because that would probably take 3 or 4 weeks. This is only within a 24 to 28 hour period that part of this water would move. So you're looking at coastal flooding. You're looking at the high winds causing some tsunamis. So probably London is going to be underwater if you look at the elevation of.
Where I am, I'm very, very close to it's called the Clyde. It's the Glasgow Clyde. It runs into the Atlantic Ocean, and I was just wondering if that would probably cause some sort of water like rushing in.
Yes, it can. You see, you're also looking at the conveyor belt, that warming trend that moves that warmer water to Ireland and England, that controls your temperature. If that shuts down, even for a little while, you're looking at freezing weathers, severely freeze. You may lose a crop for maybe the entire season, because it's happened before. Remember, just be, like I said, come to Jerusalem whenever you see this. You need to be by the pivot. You can always go back and see whatever survived out of it, but you really want to be at the pivot point of the tilt. There would be hardly any type of winds or waves. And that's about as good as I can answer you. I do have a Dropbox that has a map of your region where I kind of estimate the coastal flooding, you're welcome to download that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. One more note, actually, before I go. What yourself and Michael were saying about the military being able to stop people from seeing Planet X, and I'm thinking, if they're stopping us from seeing that, then what else are they stopping us from seeing?
It's true.
Well,
it's quite interesting.
Yeah, it is. That's,
yeah.
I'm sure they're covering a lot up.
You see, the governments are
I can imagine so.
Yeah. You see, the governments are working together to maintain economy. They got to try to maintain order through a good, somewhat standing economy to about, you know, 60 days to 40 days from its approach. The least chaos for them to handle, the better. So they're going to stretch it out as long as they can. It's
very frustrating.
So nobody wants chaos. No, nobody. But you got to do your own research, and I'll provide you where to look, and do your critical thinking. Look at it as a skeptic, but don't maintain a skepticism if you got hard evidence. And that's what I did. I mean, I was still a hardened skeptic through 3/4 of my research, looking for that Achilles heel that would break the mold. And every time I turned around, I found additional evidence. It kept on adding to it of being real. I'm totally, completely convinced the object is real. I just can't tell you exactly when. We got to pay attention to the skies. We're only going to have a short period of it being known to us. But follow the ink. When you start to see economic collapse, because they're the ones holding it up, when they decide to drop it, you're going to know it's close. That'll be the first sign.
I'll definitely keep my eyes and ears peeled for that.
Yeah.
But thank you, and thank you, Michael, for having me on your show. It's been a great honour, and I really love your show and the shows that Ira does and everyone else. It's brilliant information. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate the call. And you can go ahead and friend me on Skype. Maybe that'll help, so you can call in using Skype.
Maybe I could try that. Yeah, I mean, I don't really use Skype. This is the first time I've used this. I think that's why I'm having problems with it. But at least I've got the number, at least.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for calling in all the way from Scotland.
You can friend me on my Facebook, and we can talk privately if there's anything or your data. Okay. Gil Broussard is the name, and I would. I try to answer everybody's question. You know.
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for the call. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Gil. Thank you.
All right. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Look at that, folks, all the way from Scotland. I mean, come on. See, we should be getting. We have had a lot of calls come in tonight, but they just sometimes if you don't take them when they want you to take their call, they hang up, go to hell with them now. But
well, Michael, I think we answered their questions whenever they're during the conversation we were having as I was describing it. So that's why they were already answered. So that's why I didn't.
All right, I'm going to try, I guess, one more here. We've got Neo again, and he's asked, is there a good best guess date this starts? And you said it's already started and that you expect it to reach its peak possibly around March, the end of March, right?
Yeah, that has, time will tell, because, like I said, a date in Revelation greatly concerned. If we interpret it correctly, it's pointing at a March 26th date. So right now, we're seeing some bad things in the economy. Will it go all the way? I don't know. But if it does, then that's the flag for me. It's going to be this year. If the economy falls, then it's going to be this year.
All right. And one last question here. I got one more I just spotted. And, would you rather be in the mountains or 700 feet above sea level, Gil?
I'd rather be in Jerusalem, which is about 1,000 or so feet above sea level at the pivot point.
Hey.
It has all the advantages. Right there. That's where I'm going to be.
I hear you, and you're sticking to your guns on that, too. I appreciate that. Gil, anything you want to throw out there and plug before we say goodnight? And listen, I want to let people know, too, I'm planning with Gil to actually do a little bit of something on video together where he can actually put pictures and maps and stuff up. And we'll have that in. So that'll be one of the insider videos we'll do. We might do it this weekend. Him and I will we'll put that together. But Gil, go ahead. Anything you want to get out there, go right ahead.
People are interested in a free book that shows all the graphics, the majority of the graphics. Underneath my YouTube videos, there's a area that you can click on it, and it's some links that brings you to my Dropbox or to my Google, to where you can download the free graphic book. It's not the graphic book points to the data and the math and where it is in the Bible, and also some of the science data and secular data. And I just can't print the copyright material, which is these scientific papers.
Right, but you could direct
because
people
of copyright laws.
Right, right. But you could direct people to them, and that's what you're doing. So people are on opposite sides with this. Some believe in that it's real. Others believe it's not. And I say that I no expectations for me. All I know, I look at the signs. It's like you watch the animals. When the animals start running, you know something's coming. The animals been running, and that includes the ones in Washington and some of these other governments around the world. I mean, you're seeing movements. You're seeing them preparing for something. You can argue all day long, folks, about what it is. The fact is, it's something. We can all meet in the middle and at least say, hey, they're preparing for something and we're not. So, Gil, thank you so much for being here tonight. I'll be in touch with you, and keep safe, my friend.
Thank you, Michael, and you too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Have a great night. Bye-bye. All right, folks, there goes Gil.
It's impossible.
And give me I know you kind of went over this earlier, but give me a couple more from the Bible that point to this, because me personally, I find it interesting. I'm one who's always said I look at the Bible as more of a history book, and really people's accounts of things that happened, and others will take it as literal religious text, and I don't, and I'm not criticizing anyone who does, but I take it as records being kept. Right? I mean, isn't that
right?
What it is?
Exactly. These are eyewitness accounts. They're not random. And all of these data points help you figure out the last book of the Bible, which is Revelation. Without the data points, you cannot have a clear viewpoint of the last book. That's how detailed this stuff is. Remember, we talked about Yeshua's sacrifice. There was 3 hours of darkness. Now, let's talk about the Exodus, where it was 3 days of darkness. Why is there such an extreme there? Well, this explains how Ceres got destroyed. When it was coming in, it plowed into Ceres, destroying Ceres. That's why we have an asteroid belt now. That's a destroyed planet. And its forward motion was slowed down to 1/20th of its normal speed as it rounded the sun. And it gave 3 days of darkness. The eclipse was for 3 days, not 3 hours. And because it lost its speed, okay, it only went out 52 years before it came back in. It was drawn back by the magnetic pull of the sun, and that was Joshua's long day. Then it went around the sun, it picked up a little bit more speed, it went out 131 years. That was Ruth, the drought of Ruth, and Job's trouble. Then it went around the sun one more time, and it sped up again. It went out 336 years. That was King David and Saul. Saul had 3.5 year drought at the end of his reign, and David had 3.5 year drought at the beginning of his. It passed exactly in the middle between their argument, basically, where Saul was trying to kill David. It was in the sky. That's where you get the Star of David from. And then it went around and picked it up a little bit more speed, and it came to 358 years. This was the time of Hezekiah when the shadow went backwards. 40 days earlier than that was when Jonah of Nineveh gave a warning to Nineveh. What's interesting about Jonah is he created no miracles. How could he went to a town of 20,000 or so and perform no miracles, but yet they all believed him? Only thing he had to do was point to the sky, and they could see it at 40. The model shows that 40 days it rounds the sun. You can see it. Now, what's interesting is these people didn't have internet and TV.
That's right.
They were in tune with nature. They saw birds dying. They saw fish killed. They saw the seasonal change. They saw severe drought. They knew something was wrong. The only thing Jonah had to come says, in 40 days your doom comes. And he points to the sky. Then 40 days later is where it crossed Earth's path, getting close to Earth, and Earth tilted 26 to 28 degrees, causing the shadow to go backwards on the steps of Hezekiah. Then 152 days later is when the Assyrians had 185,000 soldiers, and they died. There's accounts in the Jewish texts in other books that says they died by fiery hail. That was 152. That was 5 months later. Now, what's interesting about Hezekiah, I think in over 78 countries or so, is documented that the calendar changed from 360 to 365 and a quarter. That's documented outside the Bible. That something caused the Earth to have a greater orbit. It went outward just a little bit, and giving us more time to go around the sun. The year was expanded to 365 and a quarter.
So then Mars would have actually been kind of more closer to the Goldilocks zone, and the last time this thing, maybe not the last time, then it would have had to have been several times ago, right, that it knocked Mars out?
In one of these, I don't know when it happened, but you can see, if you get the elevation view that puts it in color, the elevation of Mars, the different terrain, you can see a circular bruise on one of the lower half. I think 94% of all the craters of Mars are on half of its hemisphere. All of the impacts are on half of its, and that's the southern half. And the reason why you have that is because the southern half crossed the debris trail of Planet 7X, the lower half of it. That's why all of the meteor impacts only hit the lower half of it. And then at one time, it bumped it, causing a circular misindentation. Hitting it, pushing it up about another 1.5 degrees out of the plane of Earth. It was almost equal to the planetary plane of Earth. Now it's not. Now it's no longer being hit by the debris fields.
You know what my biggest concern of any of this would be are all the nuclear power plants around the globe. I think that even if you packed a good lunch and you were able to survive the coming and going of Planet X, I would really like to know how anybody plans on surviving the meltdown of all these facilities.
Some of these facilities need 18 months to cool the core down enough where you don't need any more water to be pumped on there. They're already too late on some of these units to turn them off. Now, if Earth tilts 26 to 28 degrees, according to the accounts, if it's North and South America that's getting hit, then that meant the tilt is somewhere around the eastern seaboard of America, that the tilt would be. But that meant a lot of these reactors in Canada and northern U.S. may hit extreme freezing temperatures at about 150 to 300 mile an hour winds. Well, that's why the mammoths were instantly frozen. Entire herds of mammoths were frozen with vegetation still in their mouth. They didn't have time to swallow. They were frozen in just a few seconds or minutes. Entire herds. Because they were caught in a tilt. Well, these power plants are caught in a tilt, and the cooling system freezes. Well, there goes your core. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then at some point that stuff's going to thaw out. It might be millions of years later. I don't know, but so wouldn't it still be a problem? I mean, if it's held in the ice at some point, maybe, I don't know.
No, the core would be too hot. They wouldn't have any. It would only stop the cooling system, the pumps. The pumps would fail. Therefore, it would end up blowing, just like in Fukushima.
I see. Yeah. So again, there goes my whole point is how do you survive that? I mean, I mean, you get the elites. They build these underground facilities, and you know, they must plan on staying down there forever, I guess, because it would be a very, very long time before I think you'd be able to breathe the air and feed yourself from the soil. And then, of course, I don't know, maybe something like Planet X would scorch us. I don't know.
Because they're going to go with the astronomy model that doesn't allow for a rotational delay of 12 hours, because they're not using the electromagnetic universe model. They will predict that the meteor shower will hit the Middle East, Europe, China, that area. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually the Antichrist's false miracle. Because of the terrorism listed in Seal 4, no one will give a visa to the Muslims to leave their country. So they're locked into their own country